nonprofits, they often look at entry-level fundraisers and they're like, why can't you raise $2 million? There's this huge expectation on any fundraiser. But if you're not being paid enough to like even survive in that city, then it starts to look a little bit bleaker if you're a hiring nonprofit. Like, you can't have your workers subsidize
Mhm.
your expenses. Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. I'm your host, Maria, and
Caitlin. Hi, nice to be back.
I think this is just permanent. You could just, hello, Caitlin.
Yay. All right. I'll learn my lines better.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. I'm excited. We'll practice. Uh, okay, I'm excited about today's topic because one of our clients has definitely been experiencing this for quite a bit, and I'm sure many of our listeners have been as well. So today's topic is all about struggling to hire in 2025. So whether you're looking to hire a director of development, an entry-level fundraiser, an executive director, or even some of our clients are struggling to fill program positions, what the hell is going on? I don't even know where to start. Like, we know the sector has low wages and issues with benefits, stuff like that, and we know the turnover with fundraisers, but it seems like something is happening, and I can't quite put my finger on it. What do you think?
I think there's so many different factors at play here, some of which you've already mentioned, but everything seems to be coming to a tipping point right now. And I have see so many fundraising roles that are out there, and my LinkedIn inbox is popping off with recruiters at the moment. So I'm just like, no, thank you, please. But I think that what you mentioned right there with the salaries is a key aspect of it. Like, we have seen a huge increase in the cost of living in the last 4 or 5 years. I think one of the stats we pulled was it's about 18% increase in the cost of living. And nonprofit salaries are just not able to keep up with that in many cases. And so many people have been forced to leave the sector because they just can't make a nonprofit salary work. And yeah, that's really hard to see. What do you think? Anything else that you've seen?
It's definitely hard to put my finger on it, but I feel like it wasn't as bad before COVID because people were expected to come in and they expected themselves to come in, right? So to be on site, and therefore you're not competing with someone on the other side of the country for a job, right? So now if you're a top fundraiser, you can work anywhere, make as much money as you can if you would like to, just by working remotely. So I think that has really changed the game a little bit because now, if you're an organization that is maybe not super accessible by transit because you're working in the community, you're gonna have a hard time trying to get someone to take a 1 hour commute in one direction to come work there and then an hour back. When through COVID, we all worked from home. Like, it's a hard pill to swallow, I think.
Totally. I agree. And yeah, the remote work. And I think sometimes in the nonprofit space, we can be a little resistant to change. So I think that there is some organizations and CEOs and boards who are like, well, this is over. Everybody come back to the office, and are resistant to being a remote first organization or thinking like you have to be in the office all the time. And I understand there are some benefits to it and benefits to understanding the space and making connections with program staff, but also you just need to get the right people in. And if you're serving people in the middle of the city and that city has become too expensive for people to live in, then what are you going to do? And I think we were saying as well that reducing opportunities for remote work also really impacts women in particular, which make up, I think, 80% of the nonprofit staff in our sector. So, because there is childcare responsibilities that stereotypically fall on a woman's plate. So having fully in person or even like mandatory hybrid, sometimes it just doesn't work. You can't make school pickup and drop offs work with that. You can't make daycare pickup and drop offs work with that. Like, you're just cutting out this huge population of people that could really bring a lot to your workplace, even if it is remotely.
Something else that I see, and I don't know what do you think about this just yet, but basically the fundraiser being the highest paid person at the organization is something that makes sense because you're not going to get a killer fundraiser for anything less than 100,000, right? If you're looking for an entry level one, then that's a little bit different. But for some organizations, they look at 100,000 and they say like my ED doesn't even get paid that much. So like my ED, who is like the top hierarchy position here, is making like 80,000. So how can we ever pay you 100,000? And same thing with like other positions. Like internally, organizations look at fundraisers and they say, I know the market rate is like $40,000 more than you're currently making. But if I pay you that, it's unfair to the other directors at the organization who don't have the same market rate and don't have the skill set to fundraise. I don't know if you've seen that as well.
Yeah, I think so. In British Columbia, where I'm based, it is mandatory to post a salary for all positions. So I don't think it's the same thing in Ontario, but so I can see all the different salaries and everything that are out there. And you're right, like there's such a huge range in what people are offering too. Some organizations have really kept up and are offering decent wages. And I saw one the other day that I think was like 5 years of experience, was like a kind of development officer role. And I think the range was like 50 to 55. Like for a very big organization with a big budget too. So having like people need to keep up and understand that yeah, people are bringing value regardless of whether you're a fundraiser or whether you're a program staff, but being able to, you know, actually pay people enough to live in this world and keep up with inflation and cost of living. Because if you don't offer them that, then there's going to be paid some better somewhere else.
And like nonprofits, they often look at entry level fundraisers and they're like, why can't you raise $2 million? There's this huge expectation on any fundraiser. But if you're not being paid enough to like even survive in that city, then it starts to look a little bit bleaker if you're a high rank nonprofit. Like you can't have your workers subsidize
Mhm.
your expenses.
And I think something that really I get really frustrated about is there's a stat and everything that I think is fairly accurate from the Association of Fundraising Professionals that the average tenure for a fundraising professional in an organization is 18 to 24 months. So, which isn't very long. And I think I hear a lot of, oh, that's just fundraisers like that. There's that kind of people, like they just jump around from job to job. And maybe that's true in some cases, but I really think that and the reason that exists is because there's always somebody knocking on our door with another offer and sometimes a better offer. And when you are in an organization and you are stressed and you're burnt out and you have these unrealistic expectations and no support, and somebody else comes knocking, even if it is within 18 to 24 months, like, yeah, why aren't you going to go for that?
Oh man. Okay. So like in 2018, I was at a role and I had been there for a year and a half or something like that. And I was like, why am I making 42,000? Like my skills are above that. I've saved the organization like a shit ton of money. I've raised you a shit ton of money. And I feel like what I bring to the table is worth more than 42. So I approached my employer and I was like, I want to be paid market rate. I want to be paid like 60,000, right? I know it's a big jump. I think it was like a $17,000 ask that I was making. I'm a fundraiser, okay? I'm here to ask for money. Anyway, so it's like I want to not be struggling, you know? They didn't. And I ended up getting a $5,000 raise, which was fine, but it just wasn't enough for me to justify staying. So then I left and I got a job that paid me 68,000. And after being there for 2 years, I left again and I got a job that paid me 96. So like within 4 or 5 years, I had gone from 42 to 96 with the same kind of like aptitude and skill set and ability to learn. And like, it wasn't like I was doing something completely different later on. I was building on my skills, and that's the norm for fundraisers. They know that they can take a $20,000 raise by leaving the organization, and they know that they can do that every few years. So, like, if you're not working hard to really invest in those people and making sure that your culture is good and that you have opportunities for them to grow into and they have the support that they need. Because just talking about support quickly, we were looking at a study from AFP Global, and it said that 50% of fundraisers are really happy with the amount of support that they have in house to do the fundraising, which means 50% of them are not. So, like, if you're unhappy and underpaid and the culture is poopy, why wouldn't you take a $20,000 jump? And, like, maybe you wouldn't if everything else was good, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I'm surprised that with the amount of stress and pressure and everything that is out there, I'm surprised that even half of fundraisers are like, yeah, we're good. We've got enough people to cover. Great on that 50%. But I think we see more of the organizations that feel really stretched then. And yeah, and I think I had a very similar experience to you in my career where I was like, yeah, not making very much money. And the only way that I was able to increase my salary was to move on to the next thing. And I just think about that organization that you left because they would not give you that increase in salary. How much did it cost them to replace you? What was that like to their bottom line as well? It was about replacing you, it was about training the new person, it was about all the lost opportunities and the relationship that you had built that went with you. You know, it's all of those things. So I think if you are, as part of this conversation of it being so hard to hire right now, if you have good people, keep them. Right. Try to keep them. I was seeing something yesterday that I was reading about somebody who implemented stay interviews instead of exit interviews. Rather than just doing an interview to find out what went wrong when somebody has left their job, having just regular check-ins that are like, hey, we really appreciate your work. We want to make sure you stay. What kinds of things can we do to make sure that you're going to stay with us for a long time? And just having that checkpoint and making that person feel valued is, it can be so crucial. And you can find out some things that maybe are really important to that person that maybe you didn't know about. Like maybe they would really like dental benefits or something, and they're willing to change jobs just for that. Like you don't know, but not just assuming that they're going to be around forever. And also not assuming that if they leave, it's going to be easy to replace them because it's not. Like I was doing a quick little search recently and I did like a fundraising keyword search on Charity Village, which is a big job site. There's currently 372 open job applications or job postings that match fundraising. There's over 163 jobs on the AFP Global Job Board. And then there's another 60 on the AFP job boards for Vancouver and Toronto. That's a lot that's out there. And we know as well that those jobs, like they stay up for a very long time. Like we have people who have been hiring for, what is it, 6, 8 months now, and just not finding the fit, not finding the people who have experience applying. It's hard.
Well, just the numbers alone that you just gave us, that's over 600 jobs. And that's not including EDs. That's just fundraising, not even additional like development and other keywords. And it's just the Canadian market for Charity Village, it's just the Canadian market, but it is rough. And yeah, if you're not keeping your people, I don't know, can you compete with 600 other organizations? Is your culture, your leadership, is everything that good that someone's going to choose you when they basically have the pick of the litter?
I wonder. So we talked about why people might be leaving and why it might be hard to have so much competition and everything out there. You think there are other factors right now that are increasing the need for fundraising in organizations? I've seen a lot of fundraising departments that are in this stage of like, we need to grow, we need to hire more people. So maybe it's not like losing people. Sometimes it is, but sometimes they're just like, we need to grow our fundraising reach, so we need to invest in this. And then they put it out there and it's really difficult to find good people. But I don't know, do you have any ideas or insights as to the kind of growth and fundraising need?
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of senior fundraisers have gone into consulting or have left the sector, right? So we know that's happening. And then we have like our junior fundraisers coming into the sector who are being, you know, trampled with the expectations that nonprofits have of them, especially if you don't already have a good fundraiser in place to support with that person's development and like systems building and all that stuff. Like you can't just have that be on the new entry level, new to the sector person. But I'd love to get your thoughts on we talked about what are the issues, and we know there's a lot of them. I know the audience knows there's a lot of them. Okay, what are the solutions? So what can people do if they are hiring and they're like, damn, it's been 6 months. What the hell do I do? Caitlin, tell us.
Okay. I think my biggest bugbear when looking at job postings, and so I know this is it's mandatory in BC. People don't always do it, but I think it should be like across the board. And even if it's not mandatory, post the salary. Post the salary. Make sure that is included. People need to know. And I think it also when I was looking for job adverts and everything, even if it was something that I was like really passionate about or I felt was an amazing fit, if it didn't post a salary, I felt like that spoke to the organization itself and it spoke to the culture and it spoke to the lack of transparency. And even if it was something that was like, yeah, it would be great there, this seems like a great fit, I wouldn't apply. So I think that is super important. Just have that transparency, post the salary. That is about equity. That is about so many things. Post it. And then there are other things like I know budgets are always a thing for nonprofits. We understand that 100%. So maybe you can't increase the salary by 17,000 to compete, but maybe there are other things that you can that would be benefits and would make it attractive for somebody to come work with you. Like 4-day work weeks, flexibility of like location, additional vacation, benefits, volunteer opportunities, personal development opportunities. There's so much that you can package into it to, make it an attractive offer to somebody and to widen your reach as well. And I think, as we were talking about before, remote is okay. You can do a lot with remote. And I think being able to provide that opportunity for people and to be able to spread your net a lot wider is super important. You're going to get a lot more people and you're going to be able to include people who, like, yeah, might need to work from home for health reasons, like for childcare reasons, for all sorts of other reasons. But you're going to get a much larger pool of applicants if you open that up and if you're not rigid about having somebody in 5 days a week. And then I think the other thing that I've been seeing as well is it used to be that you could just post on job sites and you would get decent qualified candidates. And if that's not working for you, a lot of people do have to turn to like executive search firms and recruitment agencies. And that there's a cost and there's an investment in that, but there's a much bigger cost and a much bigger loss if you hire the wrong person. So that I think are some ways that organizations who are looking to hire good talent right now can make their opportunities more attractive and hopefully find the right person. But what about you? Anything to add?
Yeah, for me, the whole like searching process can be quite not great. So, for example, I posted on my LinkedIn, like I think a few weeks ago, welcome to my TED Talk. You can't hire someone because nobody wants a job with a 5-page job description. So, like looking at the job description and cutting that down as much as possible, it should not be 5 pages. I feel like even with an executive director, you can get it down to two. Like, lead the strategic vision. Like, the executive director will know what that is. You don't need to tell them, like, create a strategic plan, meet with the board, blah, blah, blah. Like, they know what the job entails, right? So that's one, cutting down your insanely long job description. Second, nonprofits take a long time to make decisions and not great when this candidate is in demand. Like, I've had interview processes where I have, like, almost 2 offers in hand, and I'm like, "Oh my god, which one's gonna come in first?" Because I'm panicking, and maybe that number and that speed will make that decision. But I've had it also where I applied for a job in February or March, and I got hired in November. So when it's such a hot market, you gotta move quickly. So if you're the hiring manager, have that go directly to you. Do not send it to an HR person. This means that you're gonna get, bullshit applications from software developers because they read development, they just apply, but it's gonna be worth it in the end, and call those people as soon as you can. But yeah, I love what you're saying about remote work.
I'm going to say one more thing about the hiring process, which you reminded me of. Don't make people do free work. If you're asking people to create a campaign for your year end as part of your interview process, pay them for that. These are real people and this is their time that you're taking up. If you want to be a fair and equitable organization, pay them for their time. They are taking a long time and they are putting effort into it. Pay them for it because it does speak volumes about the organization and about the work that you do and the values that you hold.
Oh, one more thing. Don't invite people to in-person interviews if you're not serious about hiring them. If they're not your final pick, don't ask them to take time off work that they're not gonna get paid for or they have to lie to their employer about. If they can do it on Zoom, let them.
100%. Yeah.
But I think that's what we wanted to cover today. Caitlin, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, I think that was everything we wanted to chat about. If you are struggling to hire fundraising professionals in the nonprofit space, I mean, we hear you. It is tough out there. So there are so many opportunities. There's also opportunities to do things a little bit differently too. We don't have to always look at hiring externally and hiring people with huge amounts of experience. There could be people within your organization that you can grow. If you do need somebody with a good level of experience to really lead and guide the strategy, there are fractional fundraisers like the services that we offer and other people out there that can step in and help. So I think this is a really new time for hiring and a new time for the nonprofit space. And we got to adapt, we got to change, and we got to step it up and look at other things out there that maybe we haven't looked at before. I think that was all that we wanted to say. I'm going to steal your line, Maria. If you'd like to look at our beautiful faces, you can catch us on our YouTube channel. And until next time,
Bye for now.
bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.